you've got these older guys who are quite willing to, slap you back into shape if you ever start to get too big for your boots. So it was a really good era to be in.
Did you ever get slapped back into shape, Andy?
I don't feel like that's like I stepped out of line enough to warrant to a backhander, but a couple of stern words from some of the lads every now and again.
Oh, was there? Yeah, was there? What was that like then? Who would give you a stern word or two?
Oh, I just remember one of my first ever champs, Ben Challenger and Dean. I shared an apartment with Dean Macy, and obviously that's big Dino, and he won a medal, and they're just like, "Shut up! I don't care if you won a medal. I'm competing tomorrow. Shut up!" And it was just, there was no love lost, and you won a medal, nice one. Now shut up, because everybody else has got to do their bits, and you just had to understand your place in the team.
Okay, here you. Very good, very good. So going into 2007, you obviously got to send us the world champs that year, but you also started to suddenly you were invited to the big meetings, like in places like Oslo and Brussels and those great theatres of athletics. What was that like, stepping into those stadiums for the first time?
Fantastic. These were stadiums that I've watched on TV, and I was fortunate enough to sign with Pace Sports Management, who obviously had Usain at that time, and Usain was top guy. So everywhere Usain raced, I raced. So not only was I running in these huge competitions, but we were traveling around with Usain Bolt, and that's, at the time, was normal. But then you retire and you think, oh, that's so not normal. That's really cool. That was, and I try and tell my kids, and they're like, no way, that's wicked. Just going into these stadiums, we watched these amazing moments previously, and actually, standing on the start line and potentially being in one of these races that could again be one of the greatest moments, because you're racing against the world record holder and the Olympic champion, and the guy that's going to break the world record, and you're racing the world's best, and you just know any time something magic could happen, and hopefully you just can be part of that magic.
Absolutely, yeah. And the world champs were a slight disappointment, perhaps. You got to the semis, didn't you, in Osaka?
Yes, it was a disappointment, and it wasn't at the same time. I ran a personal best in my heat, and then in the semi-final, I remember it was the first two and two fastest losers, and I had David Oliver, Lu Zhang, David Robles. Who was that?
That's like a final. That's like a final straight off the bat, isn't it? Yeah. Merit, maybe.
Yeah. I had the world record holder, the guy that was about to break the world record, the guy that had the previous world record. I think Aries Merritt was in it as well, so the guy that break the world record again. So, you had the crazy lineup. So, as much of a disappointment it was not to make the final, I went there and I ran two consistently, pretty good runs. So, I had to take a lot of positives away from that.
Okay. And then next year, it's back to the Olympics again. Again, you didn't quite get to semis this time. That was disappointing, wasn't it, for you?
Yeah.
How do you summarize that? Yeah.
I had no excuses for that year. It was, I tried my best. I gave it everything I had, but it was I just underperformed. I went to the championships. I hadn't particularly run well that year. I don't recall any particular injury neither. And it was just an off year for me. The Olympics just seemed to be a bit of a bogey year for me. Like I say, there was no excuses. It was just one of those things where all season I didn't fire, and then went to the Olympics, and again it just wasn't there.
Okay, around this time you were the same group as Christina Huragu, who won the world champs in the 400 meters the year before, and then won the Olympics in 2008. What's it like to be in that group alongside an athlete like that, and what's it like to train with someone like that?
Well, you have to up your game all the time with Christine. She was always there. Every time you did a rep, she was always there. So you always had to make sure that you turned up, but ready to go in training. We had a fantastic group, because we had Simeon Williamson was another athlete that we trained with. So, he was another guy that could break 10 seconds. And then you got Christine, who can, every 200 meter rep that we did, she was always there with you. So the group was quality, and the intensity was amazing, but also the everybody's mindset. Everybody wanted to be the best. It was like a professional training group. Everybody was there because they were trying to do what Christine did and try to win medals and be the best athlete going. you know, there was no time for messing. Well, you know, obviously we had a laugh and a joke, but it was very businesslike when we went to the track. And yeah, really, really good time to be training with my training group.
Good stuff, good stuff. And but then that year you got dropped from what athletes get lottery funding for the performance as part of the performance team, but you lost funding that year. How does that work? How do you learn? And what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, it was frustrating. I kind of knew it was going to happen anyway. Obviously, an athlete knows if you don't perform, you don't get lottery funding, and obviously the financial side of things is a huge help, but also the extras that you might not realise that you get: the warm weather training trips, the physio, the access to the medical provisions. You know, I started to have a few little niggles that needed a constant attention. So being cut from funding was disappointing, but I took it to appeal, and the appeal process was ridiculous because I went there with all the evidence that apart from the 2008, every year I was getting quicker and quicker, and the national governing body didn't want to add in the fact that I'd run personal bests, so their evidence was just ridiculous. It wasn't accurate. So, you know, they basically told me I was too old and too slow to make a final, and winning the medal was out of the question. So it was disappointing that you know they were willing to go such lengths to kind of to fight their case that I was past it. But you know, it wasn't a case that I felt like I had to train harder and do more, because I gave it everything in training. I always gave it everything. I sacrificed, you know, my 20s and my early 30s for athletics, and you know, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But it just made it very difficult not to be funded, and that's why I went. I raced absolutely everywhere, and then going into the next championships, I'd over-raced and got injured.
Okay, yeah. I mean, one of the things I heard was that you've been accused of being too small. There's physiological reasons for you not getting funding. Is that something you've heard at all? Which when you look at someone like Jess Ennis, you wouldn't build a heptathlete based on Jess Ennis, but
No,
clearly she was the best.
Yeah, no, I'd not heard that one, but possibly.
Okay.
I always remember with the camera, you know, the camera would come along on the start line and they'd be like, lane 6, this person, lane 7, that person, lane 8, this person.
Drop
It'd always
down.
come. I was always short than the rest of them, but you know what I made up in height. If you look at my flat speed, you know, I could run 10.2, 10.3. These guys, most of these guys can't run that. They run 10.4, 10.5, 10.6. So yes, I made up for it. I lost it in height, but I had it in speeds. But it just so happens the hurdles are massive, so that extra inch would have been a benefit.
Okay, good. Yeah. So 2009 started off well. Well, you had your fourth in the European indoors, pretty good. Was it pretty good, or did you want bet more than that?
No, I ran the quickest time in the heat, and the time I ran in the heat would have won the final. So, but I got, and every athlete has an excuse, but I genuinely got cramp in both my hamstrings in the warm up. So, if you know, if you're an athlete and you've had cramp before, you know it's always there. It's always, you know, it might just come back again any time. So I was kind of hesitant out of the blocks, and you know, I lost the medal by 1,000th of a second, and that's, you know, had I not had cramp, I think I could have won the gold, or at least, you know, another medal. So disappointing that one.
Okay. And then the world champs, you had a busy season, but you went out in the heats at the world champs. So was it just because you got tired towards the end of the season?
No, because I'd lost my funding, I raced everywhere I could possibly race, and I'd had 20 odd races, which is a lot for, you know, maybe even 25 races. So it's a lot to have going into the champs. Although I was running well all year, I was running, you know, consistently quick times. I tore my hamstring, and again, it was one of those things that I just wanted to get on the start line because I had such a good year. You know, I had a chance of making a final. I genuinely thought that every run I was running 13.3 consistently, and you know, I'd run 13.2 as well. So the hamstring didn't hold out. Made the finishing line, but you know, it wasn't enough time to heal enough to be of any quality during the race. So a very frustrating year that one was, 2009.
Okay. And by this time, you had a rival, a domestic rival. Will Sharman emerged, and he finished fourth in the world champs that year. You guys didn't get on too well, did you? You had a bit of a rivalry there.
you know what? He texted me the other day. It's like every athlete at the you know, he was a very talented athlete. He really was. But you know, you know, I didn't like it be him, and he was just my rival. That's all it was. But like I said, you know, he texted me probably 3 weeks ago and said, "Let's go out for a beer sometime," and I would. Now all that rivalry's done. You know, we've all moved on, and I'd love to sit down with him and just chat about careers, because you know, all that excitement and nerves and adrenaline and all that, we don't have that anymore. We can just be men and discuss, you know, have a chat over our career for a beer.
I was going to ask you that. Do you look back on that and now it's healthy for a lot of athletes to have that domestic rival to constantly keep you on your toes at all times? Yeah.
100%. He pushed me on and I pushed him on. When I won the trials and ran 13:23, you know, he had a breakthrough in that race. He hit the hurdle towards the end, but had he not, he would have ran 13:3, and that's, you know, that was probably almost half a second quicker than he's ever run before. So, you know, I helped to bring him on, but at the same time, I knew he was there all the time, and I've got to keep running my best in order to stay ahead. So it helped both of us. It was a huge benefit for us to run against each other.
Good. And next year, probably your best year, really, winning the Europeans and winning the Commonwealth Games. I guess the Europeans as well. You weren't favourite for that. You went in fourth fastest, I think, but you won it.
Yeah, I don't remember, to be honest. It's weird. I genuinely don't remember a whole lot about the year. I can't remember what happened. I was running pretty good. I knew I had as good a chance as as anybody. It was a very open Europeans. I remember that, and I think it was going to be whoever nailed it on the day was going to win the gold. Ran my heat, ran really comfortably. In the semi-final, I was out ahead, hit a hurdle, and then the Czech guy Petr Svoboda came past me, and I made it through to the final, but I shook myself because, you know, I'd made such a big mistake, and that could have cost me my place in the final. And then, in all honesty, I don't remember anything between then and clicking into consciousness at about hurdle 9 in the final. It's bizarre. I just remember the race going ahead, Svoboda being slightly ahead, and then him disappearing, and then I'm like, oh my God, don't make a mistake, and I've won. It was bizarre, because, you know, you ask any athlete, tell me about your best race, and most of them will say, it just happened. It just happened. I don't remember it. And that's the same for me. I genuinely can't remember the races. You know, I watch it back on TV and I can't tell you what's going through my head or what I was thinking, because I don't remember being there. It's bizarre.
That's good. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah. Is the hurdles like that now? It's kind of you know, do you have to get into a zone for the hurdles and just run this tunnel vision race? I mean, how conscious are you of the other athletes there, or is it just about just executing what you do?
No, normally you're conscious of, you know where people are. You can feel where people are. You know if you're ahead, or you know if you're second or third. And I knew during the race that Svoboda was ahead, but he made the same mistake that I made in the semi-final. He clipped a hurdle in it, you know, he went backwards, and I managed to get past it. Then the hurdles, you've got 10 chances to make a mistake, and the majority of the time, it's the person that makes the least mistakes is going to win the race. And it just so happened that in the final, I didn't make a mistake. I had a clean race, and ran, 13.2 into a headwind. So that was, probably my quickest race.